Hi, I'm Jan, this is AcaLounge How To, and today we're doing a breakdown of our recording session of Chloe by Hannah Peel. Okay, so what you can see now is FL Studio. It's the DAW that I like to use, and in the end the projects have a similar workflow mixing, the same as it would have been in Pro Tools, but I like FL Studio for some kind of flexibility that it gives you. The top part of your screen is the main window that I see on my main monitor, and on the bottom part you can see the mixer, which I have on my second monitor. So in the main window you can see the channel rack right here, which will have all the audio tracks and or let's say all the audio clips basically, and all the VST instruments. And all of those can be arranged in a pattern, so you can say what you want the instruments to play or even the pitches that you want audio clips to play. And you can then arrange the clips or the patterns in the playlist window, which is the large window right here. So you can see at the top here I had a click track and I had the MIDI track inside a Rhodes VST. It's the UVI Gospel Musicians Neo Soul whatever bundle. And I like to record to usually a Rhodes because I don't like the hard attack of a piano. And you will have some automation clips here, which automate some functions in either the mixer or a specific mixing plugin. We have some audio tracks, which are all basically the dark red ones. And that should be about it. In this instance, for example, you can see the patterns that I consolidated, or the tracks that I froze and output together to have one clip. And here are the backing oohs, which still look like me recording them because I didn't bother to really change them or pitch correct them or anything. So in this case, we can listen to the oohs in the background just once. Those are kind of just the flourish that comes from all the sides, and I've recorded them, stacked them on top of each other, recorded different versions. There's a high male deep with a deep voice or a deeper tone, a high male close, there's lows, left, right, and center. And after having panned them and having created that stereo field, I just copied them over. So, and sometimes I copied less to have like different effects and more stronger or less strong effects in the background. And you can see this is exactly what happened here. So I basically copied them wherever I needed them and kind of stuck them in this group. And the other tracks are consolidated tracks that I recorded and then picked the best takes and then copied and pasted and then all put them and output them into one WAV file. The nice thing about this is that after you've put them in one WAV file and they're all kind of leveled and matched, you will see like here the alto bottom, which has a star, which means that I've put it in U-tone, and this is the pitch correction software that comes from ImageLine, the makers of FL Studio. And I actually just use this because I can pull stuff into this and it will render it for me. And I don't use the variations up here. I tend to, if it's not a really boring part that doesn't need any care at all, I will not use the center and leave the variation as is and only kind of hand massage some notes to the middle because I like to keep it more realistic. Okay, so after having rendered that and just pulled it into here, I will take all of my tracks and I will run them through RX7 by Isotope. And what that will do is kind of get rid of the lip smacks, the kind of noises, and it will get rid of some of the breaths or make them less loud. I tend to use some de-essing and some gating to get rid of the unnecessary breaths in background parts or in the bass parts, but usually that's just about it. So, what I like about this song, and the song has been the opening theme of a Channel 4 series in the UK called Dates, and it actually opens with the final melody. I'm not lonely. So this is kind of the melody that sticks with you, because that's the that was the melody that I kind of associated with this song. And then listening to Hannah Peel's complete song of this, and not just the opening of the series, I noticed that this is just in the song, like in the last 5 seconds maybe, and then the song's over basically. So I tried to recreate this feeling with the arrangement, which would mean that this has to be the moment. Like if you have an arrangement, always want to think about like the moment that you feature, or the moment that everything comes together, or whatever. This would be the moment for that arrangement. So I wanted to build everything towards this, which also means that this has to be like spectrally, and from all frequency considerations and stuff, this has to be the fullest sound kind of. So knowing that we want to have this huge chorus at the end, and that's the moment of the arrangement, and that's our goal, to create this moment, we can then kind of design the arrangement around that. And that means starting not huge to have that space to later have that huge chorus. Which means that all of the stuff, when you just skip through the song, is kind of toned down. And even this chorus kind of lacks the oomph of the last one. It's kind of a different sound altogether. And I've stuck to the original order of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, and chorus, because there's a lot of interesting stuff already happening in Hannah Peel's version, which is kind of the charm of that song anyway. So you have this really cool bass drum that is not always in the same place, but has kind of its own rhythm that goes along, but doesn't align always with a large one of the song, or with a large beats one basically. And so that was a focus point, to get this, get the repetitiveness, and as well get like the little idiosyncrasies in there. So the song starts with a pattern, and with that bass drum. And if we now take the bass drum away, that was the last ooh, and this is just it. This is basically the entire verse. So the vocals have a lot of space to kind of develop something to lead you into it, and you get kind of into this repetitiveness, and you're just kind of strung along by the bass drum not always being where you think it would be. So let's design a bass drum then. So let's get into the nitty-gritty for a little bit and look at the kick drums, how I did them, and what the effects are. We have looped a part in the first verse with a kick in there, and when we look at the channel, we can see it's routed to mixer track 22. Down here in the mixer, you can actually see there's no effects on track 22, and that's because it's just used to patch the signal to other tracks. And we're patching it to the next 2 tracks with the volume active, and we're also patching it to 2 of the other tracks, which is the low bass bus and another bass section, and there's no volume going in there, so it doesn't show, or it doesn't, you can't hear it on the mix track itself, but the signal is there for the computer. So in the plugins on the mix track, you can select that signal as a sidechain input. So let's disengage all the effects and just listen to one of those channels. This is kind of the high part. What I like to do is split the kick drum up into 2 mixing channels, and I do the same thing with the bass. And then on one kind of just shape the transient, and on the other one shape the kind of rumble, or with the bass shape like the actual voice and the octaving signal down there. So this is the signal of the kick drum by itself. You can see we already lost a lot of oomph. So it's just me going 3 times. And we have 3 effects on here. One is kind of a bit of shaping with an equalizer. You can see just boosting a bit of the attack frequency, which happens to be around 125 Hertz. And we have a compressor that kind of allows the transient to go through and then attenuates everything after, with kind of a long hold pattern as well, just to have like more of an attack sound. So this is without the compressor, really long, and this is with. You can see like this coming through more. So we have kind of an attack of the kick, and the other channel we will use to kind of get the rumble and all the oomph of the kick. And the first thing we do, without all of this, it's the same signal. And the first thing we do is little altar boy, or any Octaver will do, but I use little altar boy. These settings, I like to add just a tiny bit of drive, exactly 12 semitones down. And that already gets us kind of in the region where we want the frequencies to be. But it's not like a real signal, and you won't recognize this as a real voice, so we can feel free to shape this with hard EQ cuts. And that's exactly what we did here. You can see like a high, heavy boost in the low rumble area, where a normal kick drum would be like 50 Hertz somewhere. And we also have a compressor here, which I will bring up for you. And that kind of does two things. Now we don't have a hold pattern. We don't kind of attenuate all of that comes after the attack. And we also have a rather slow attack. So the initial transient gets through, but this time it's lower than the 125 Hertz of the high signal. And then it kind of gets pushed down, and then it immediately starts to open up again and kind of let the rumble through. You can hear it kind of come back and then push out again with the rumble. And that kind of sounds unnatural like this, but both signals together, they already kind of have this hitting, this punchiness about them. They kind of have this punchiness about them. And now let's activate the signal chain on the drum bus. This is not that much of a difference. There's another compressor there that kind of sidechains another signal with this, because when you have a lot of kicks later, you don't want the tail end of one kick to kind of mask the attack of the next kick. But other than this, we just have one more equalizer that kind of just takes away some of the higher frequency strangeness that is in the signal. Let's hear without and with. Kind of cleans it up, takes away from the more you cut that doesn't make it into the mix, the less you have to fix in the mix, basically. And then there's a saturation plugin from a FabFilter, and this is just really low-end stuff. This is the warm tape algorithm, and this is without and with. You really hear a difference down there where like a cell phone wouldn't play anything back, but it kind of just creates a sense of it's kind of tamed. And yeah, okay, so this is kind of what I would call sound shaping. This is all before the mix actually happens, and this would be like how I would render out the kick and kind of save it in my library to use later. So let's hear it in context. And you can hear that exactly those low frequencies can come through there. Thinking about the arrangement, that kind of means we already have a lot of information going on in the really low end. So there has to be some room to then have the octaving bass come in. And you can see that we actually have the bass here. And you can also hear like the side chaining when there would be a kick that it kind of draws back. And then there's a difference in the second verse, because there's no bass 2. There's no bass 1 also, and the kick drum also changed. So this is one of the automation clips. You can see it down here. This is the Pro Q 3 on the drum bus, and it just kind of gets activated and then gets mixed out again. And the kick drum thereby changes, and we have a verse 2 that really has no low end information. You can see it down here in the analyzer. It really actually starts at 150 Hertz or something. And this gives us the opportunity to then have the low end come in and have a fat chorus in the end. So lastly, let's talk about the harmonic content and how we try to achieve the repetitive but also kind of soothing effect of the song and the kind of mood and recreate that. And one important aspect of that is that I arranged it to be recorded, and I didn't arrange it to be performed live. It can be performed live, but it's not something that a choir would likely be really eager to sing. And I can show you why. And the reason why is in about 3 parts. So this is one of them. And let's just click through the song. This is basically the entire part until about there, and then it kind of switches to another mixing channel and goes na 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 na. The other part is this. And then we also have this one. So this kind of makes a really nice, embracing kind of sound. But it's also something that you wouldn't really want to perform live. But you can see there's always a sound. There's not a like microsecond in this arrangement where there's a bit of a break. There's always at least some vowel or some going on, as well also with the reverbs and delays that kind of bounce into each other. And that is kind of a big part of this recorded sound that's that nothing's missing, because you don't have the reverb of a large hall or like your performing space, and you don't have the audience going, yeah, but it's a choir, and so like you wouldn't expect it to have a big kick drum, or you wouldn't expect it to have a pad in the background. It's a recording, and it's meant to be like a YouTube video. So the same kind of sparkly stuff that you wouldn't have in a live performance of a band maybe, that goes onto the studio album, that's kind of also the stuff that goes into this track, which in this case is a really long drone and patterns that just endlessly repeat. Another way of going about arranging would have been like the Black Chandelier cover we did like 9 months ago. And that was actually arranged for a choir, and you can see that in the parts changing function midway through the song. So some parts will have just some whispers or some talking or vocal percussion, and then they will have the melody for a section like the chorus, and then they will go into the backing section or have a counter melody. And that would mean that you would have to change, if you get the stems or the vocal parts from one person, you would have to change the mixer track allocations and would have to change function within that. So that's really not that serving to the recording. So that's what I mean by this was arranged for a recording. The tracks and the stems and the vocal parts, they're all kind of aligned with their function in the arrangement and in the mix later. So then here's how it all fits together, starting with the pattern and the second counter pattern kind of. Then we have the oohs that kind of lead into the next chord. And the bass drum. Then we have high basses, also stereo separated. And then let's add the low basses in there. Those are without the Octaver. Let's add that in. And now it's a full sound. Let's add the reverbs. And then we have like the counter altos and the high tops. And still some space in the middle for the melody. But that's it for this breakdown. Huge thanks to Steph for recording the vocals for this. This just wouldn't have come alive as much as it did without her vocals, and I'm really happy how it turned out. I hope that this also helped you to just give you some ideas about stuff that you might want to try in your own sessions or mixes. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments, and if not, see you next time.